All right, everyone. How are y'all doing? It is that time of week again. We've already got people here. Holly is here on Twitch, my one Twitch fan in the house. How are you? Crystal's here. How are you doing, ma'am? Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Um, let's see. Where do we want to start? This is where I want to start. Right here. In case y'all have missed any of my posts over the past couple of weeks, I have a website now, www.hitproductions.live, and there is a link there to my merch page in case y'all have missed me talking about the merch. If you have, I don't know how you have because I've beat it to death, which is a good thing. We've added some new stuff specifically for the holidays, some gift type stuff that are a little bit more inexpensive, some notebooks and cups and socks, some really cool looking socks that I can't wait to get. We added a camo champion, like windbreaker looking thing that has my logo on it. That's pretty cool. Then, of course, we got the hats and the t-shirts and the hoodies and all that kind of stuff. So huge shout out to Mavens of Merch, Dana Fellows, and I always butcher the pronunciation of her name, Zena Blaachi, I think. Anyway, it's Z. Everybody calls her Z. So, yeah, y'all go check that out. Kenny D, what's going on, man? Good to see you. That's covering up my whole face. Adam, candy corn. No, sir. Hey, Jenny Gold. How are you doing, ma'am? All right. So my guest tonight we've become pretty good friends over the past year or so. He's been a guest on my show before. He's Jacob Roig. He's a business coach. It just dropped some awesome insights. He's just brilliant at what he does. But recently, his wife has gone through a double lung transplant. So he's going to share with us tonight kind of that journey and that story and what it's been like. One from her side and just her strength and her resilience through all this, but also what it's been like being a husband and a caregiver and the breadwinner for the family all at the same time. Not to mention living in California, where we were just talking about this, gas out there is still over $5 a gallon, which is insane. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Jacob Roig out.
Hey.
Hey, Jacob, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm ready to share some goodness, and I see some great people in the house.
I am ready to hear it, man. Let me edit this real quick. I need to edit this banner. I should have done that beforehand.
Kenny D.
Kenny D is here.
Mr. Ortega, it was nice to connect with you last week.
Hey, Shannon Epps is here. Good to see you, Shannon. Hadn't seen you in a while. Who else is here? Peggy Pridgian. I don't know how to say your last name. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Thanks for dropping in. Cool. So talk to us, man. So you've been on a heck of a journey the past, I'm sure it's been a few years, but I mean, specifically the past few months for sure.
Yeah. So a few years ago, my wife got diagnosed after about a year of this cough. And I'm like, man, this cough isn't normal. And she kept being told it was allergies. And finally, after a CAT scan, we found out that she had terminal pulmonary fibrosis, which is a hardening of the air passages. They eventually scar up so much that they can't absorb oxygen and you basically suffocate to death, which is in reality what it is. But there's no cure and there's no cause that they know of. So it's just, they call it idiopathic. So anyways, from that day, it was 3 years ago, she was told immediately she had to quit work and get her house in order. And, you got a 1 to 3 year lifespan here. And so, it was a shock, number one, but we both have kind of incorporated growth, open-mindedness about everything, and not being, we were talking about heroes and victims earlier, not being a victim to something. And so after a couple of days of like being really gut punched, we just chose to enjoy each day and each moment. And one of the things that any illness does, if you're aware enough, is it allows you to enjoy each day, because that's all you get, right? Tomorrow, we all say like, we know we're going to die, but when it really, there's a date put on it, it's different. It's
Right.
different for sure.
I can
And so,
imagine.
yeah, so we just started collecting these. I call them nuggets. Each day was a nugget, and then you get the call. The first time it took a year to get on a transplant list. It's not an easy thing. Every single organ has to be in top shape because this surgery is so intense.
Hmm.
Um, and so after a year of testing, prodding, poking, all this stuff, she finally got on a transplant list. And 9 weeks or 9 days on the transplant list, she got the call.
Wow.
And so you go to the hospital and they do all this prep, and they're, taking vials of blood and all these IVs and all this testing. And the surgery was going to happen about 20 hours because they have to wait for the family to let go of the person. And then they have to, basically harvest the organs in order so that they can help other people live.
Hmm.
Um, so, anyways, I'll cut it a little bit shorter. That first one, an hour before the surgery, got canceled. Things didn't line
Hmm.
up. Her antibodies were too strong, and sorry, you're going home. And
Hmm.
so 11 months later, or 10 months later, we got the call, and she had a double lung transplant. And she was only 5% of all the transplants that have ever happened on lungs. She was one of them. They had to trim the lungs, they didn't fit. So they had to take lobes off the lungs in order to make them fit into the cavity. So, which I never even knew could happen.
That's great. Like you were
And
telling me that beforehand, like that. You
yeah,
think of something like a liver, you can cut part of it off and it'll regenerate and still work and all that. I never would have even thought that you could do that with lungs.
yeah, me either. And so um, that she goes into surgery and they say, hey, it's going to be about 8 to 10 hours. And so sleep was like not going to happen.
Hmm.
But at 10 hours, I'm like, all right, no news is good news. And 12 hours later, like 12 and a half hours, I get a call. Everything went, you know, as good as planned. But if I can backtrack a little, one of the hardest thing to date, there's been a lot of tough things with this, having to replace income that immediately got shut off, having to like
Hmm.
deal with the progressively getting worse of condition of my wife, and all these things
Hmm.
really affect everything. You have to make all
Yeah.
these adjustments.
Yeah.
Saying goodbye to her at surgery, because there's a
Mm.
50-50 chance, and they tell you 50% chance she won't make it through the surgery. And that was the toughest thing,
Mm.
man. It was like you have this plan, like here's what I'll say, but when the time comes, it's like it's just
Yeah. What do you
it's
say?
nowhere. Yeah, it's nothing to
It's
say,
just
man, except cry. And
everything that you thought was totally inadequate.
yeah, it definitely wasn't. It was definitely a tough one. And
Mm.
then um, so what like I was saying earlier, a lot of this is about adjustment. She had to adjust her
Hmm.
life. I'm adjusting mine. I'm becoming more of a caregiver and trying to
Hmm.
function full time in my position. And a lot of people on here were entrepreneurs, and you have to like you got your shield up, right, and you have to adjust to whatever shows up. You kind of have to respond to it, and how you respond and react makes a huge difference. um, when you get married, it's all like joy, right? You happiest day of your life almost for most
Hmm.
people. And you say for better or for worse. But when it really shows up, you got to be prepared for it because it can take you out. Like there
Yeah.
are so many adjustments, so many things that you do, and your mind will take you to these places, sometimes resentment, sometimes anger, sometimes sorrow, sometimes sadness. And if you don't have a strong connection to your partner, and if you don't
Hmm.
have the ability to be able to adjust, it will take you out. There's somebody that I connected with on this platform who had a double lung transplant, and she had battled cancer for a year, and the radiation ruined her lungs and her heart. And she was telling me this story, and I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, and in her recovery from the transplant, her husband who they had 7 and 8-year-old kids, I think it was, called her and said he filed for divorce. He couldn't take it anymore. And when I
Mm.
first heard it, I was like, oh my God, man, this dude's so terrible and blah, blah, blah. And I still feel that way. But there was a point in time where I understood how that could happen during
Yeah.
this whole ordeal, man. So my wife, tribute to her, she never once has complained. She's never said,
Wow.
why me? She's never said, she's been in tears and so much pain, like after surgery, some
Mm-hmm.
days, but she's never once, man, like complained or anything. I've made up for it. In my own mind, man, I'm like whining like a little baby, right? Some days. But
Right.
she's just this pillar, man, of like her will to live is amazing. And I'm just saying, like,
Wow.
connecting to your own reasons why. And all of us might have different reasons, and I'm a business coach, so I've analogized a lot of these things into how business flows, or how I show up for business, or how I could be a better leader, or this. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of, there's a saying, how we do anything is how we do everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, and so it's just been, like I said, the biggest observation for me is how I'm able to adjust to things.
Mm-hmm.
And the more present I can become, the more aware I am about where I'm at and what I'm dealing with that day.
Right.
It made it a little bit easier to handle it. Um, yeah, thanks for that, Lisa
Yeah.
Marie. It's one of the things with LinkedIn communities, spectacular, man.
Yeah.
My most viral posts are ones where I posted about my wife.
Mm-hmm.
But people sending prayers, and you reached out sending prayers. Lots of people did, on an individual basis and on a group basis. And at one point in the recovery room, my wife said she had this, she knew she was kind of awake, but she had this vision, and there were 12 uh, angels surrounded her bed. And they were in these white robes with these beautiful red roses in their hands. And at that point, she knew that she was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that just, like, still to this day blows me away, because she's had
Yeah.
two dreams with that group show up in it. And it's the power of prayer, man. It's strong.
For real. Yeah. Amen to that.
Yep. So
For
anybody
sure.
out here that's dealing with a bunch of stuff, like, we all have our stuff. We all have things that are going on, and some are worse than others. And my role as a caregiver is really just about adjusting and fulfilling my commitment that it's for better or for worse, and leaning into the love of it versus the
Mm-hmm.
burden of it. And
Mm-hmm.
in my work, right, it's kind of the same thing. I got to lean into the reason that I do this, the joy that I get from dealing with my clients, so that all the things that I have to do to make it work, to get that
Mm-hmm.
next conversation or client or whatever it is, can happen. So there's a lot of things that we all go through. And all of us have this innate power within us to overcome anything, but you can't do it on your own. You really can't.
Yeah.
You got to have a source somewhere, at least a spiritual source, if not a personal source
Amen.
on top of
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Um, and I didn't always reach out to people, because when you're a caregiver and things are going on, everybody says, if there's anything I can do, just ask. And
Yeah.
as a caregiver, you don't have time to ask. It's like the time it would take
Right.
me to stop, ask, do. It's like I could just go do it, or I just went without.
Mm-hmm.
If you know a caregiver out there, one of the best gifts you can give them is send them food. Don't send me a don't send
A
me a
gift card.
certificate that says, "Hey, call Instacart or whatever it is, and they'll
Right.
deliver it."
Right.
I still have to do that work, and it's like, I'll go pick it up myself, because it's going to take Instacart an hour. Just deliver the food, have it
Right.
delivered. Don't
Right.
even ask them what they want. Just order something. If they don't like it, they won't eat it. But food, or having somebody come in without asking and saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
Jacob, I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna do your laundry this week." I know they're not glorious things to do, but if you really want to help somebody that's out there doing it, like those two things for
Yeah.
me would have been like, oh my God, thank you, because there was a lot of prep getting together before my wife came. I had to wash down all the walls and clean the house and do the air ducts and do all kinds of things before she got home. And in between going to the
Wow.
hospital and doing this and that. So, and working full time, trying to
Right.
work full time.
Yeah. One thing you said really stuck out, doing it for the love of it, not the burden of it. Um, I bet maintaining that train of thought or that mindset can be a struggle. Just when it gets to be
It
a
is.
lot, I bet it can. I bet it can.
Yeah. Well, there's moments where, like I said, I understood how someone could check out. When you think about it's a your significant other. They've been going through 2 years
Yeah.
of major things, and you're on the other side of that coin, right? Holding everything together, taking care of everything, paying the bills, making the
Mm-hmm.
money, you know, doing the food, becoming, a homemaker per se, were
Mm-hmm.
areas that I wasn't for 25 years. I didn't have to do it. Tina loved doing that stuff. And I was like, I loved it. She loved it because I didn't like doing it, but you get thrown into
Right.
it and you choose to do it,
Right.
and people just say, man, I don't know how you do it. And it's like, I don't know either. I just choose to. And you don't really dwell on it. You do it because this person who you've made this commitment to, and it tests your commitment. It really does. Because, like I said, it's really easy to say for better, for worse, and sickness and in health on
Mm-hmm.
wedding day, because it's the best day ever, and
Right.
it's so easy to say. It's just like us saying we know we're going to die because we don't plan on dying today or tomorrow. So it's easy to
Yeah.
say, yeah, I know I'm going to die. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, this just brings to the surface to really stop and enjoy every day. Stop and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy every customer that says, like, I have people that believe in me so much that they pay me a month in advance so that I
Wow.
can help them grow their business. Like the
Mm-hmm.
trust and the belief in me to be able to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
I've never taken it for granted, but it's just on a whole deeper level at this point.
Yeah.
Um, Doing laundry and finding the joy in doing it was not something that was easy for me to do, but I do it. I do it
Yeah.
now because I just understand, like, the level of commitment that this is expressing to my
Yeah.
wife, where she feels bad that I have to, and
Mm-hmm.
my job is to just let her know it's okay, man. This is all good. Like,
Yeah.
we're together. Like, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it definitely puts priorities to the ranking. What's the most important thing?
Yeah.
And we all say we know business isn't, but to a certain degree, the income from it is, because
Right.
it's maintaining the things that happen. Like we
Right.
live in we live in the U.S. Not insurance doesn't cover everything. So
Right.
and this is not one of those surgeries that's cost you $30,000. This
Right.
this could buy, yeah, this could buy a house in California, which is
Which is a freaking lot, in case y'all didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you're thinking a half a mil, yeah, yeah, that's a nice garage I can get for a half a million.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I mean, you think about it, but you don't think about it until they're there. It's just, but how do you trade off a medical bill for the life of your wife? You don't.
You
You
don't.
just suck it up and go with it. I mean,
Yep, and
eh,
you figure out ways to make things work out, and there's always a solution to everything.
mhm,
Like one of the things in business that I've grown to be able to do really easily is when problems show up, I get excited. I don't like
mhm,
them, but I get excited about them.
mhm.
And the reason is because I'm moving forward. If I wasn't growing or
Right,
moving forward, I wouldn't bump into the problem.
right.
And so it's kind of embracing that mindset or emotion of it. It's like all right, this is a financial problem, but it's not the end of everything. And
Right.
most places are willing to work with you, or there's help that you can find if you slow down enough
Mm-hmm.
to do it and remember to breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we get so stressed out in just simple things. And, one of the gifts of having something so traumatic happen to someone that you love so deeply is that you start realizing all this trivial stuff that I get upset about is trivial stuff that I shouldn't even like. You don't get upset about it anymore. It's like, this isn't
Right.
working. The show's not going to happen tonight. Okay. It's like,
Right.
yeah, we'll see you next week.
Right.
So um, if anybody's going through some heavy duty stuff, like, ask a question because, like I said, this has been a roller coaster ride like none I've ever been on, and none I hope nobody on this call ever has to be on.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that technology is amazing. The people that work in caregiving situations, like the staff, there's probably a staff of about no less than 50 people on her
Mm-hmm.
team, the transplant
Mm-hmm.
team. And these people are amazing. They really care. And you can tell the ones that don't were like maybe two or three out of 100 people that she had to interact with in her care during this whole
Mm-hmm.
time. Cause she was in the hospital for 28 days. And then 6 weeks, you got to live near the hospital. And here's where it gets a little funny because, funny, not really funny, but the insurance company, so the medical says, hey, you got to live within 15 minutes of the hospital in case something goes wrong. The first 6 weeks out are the most critical. And because they're adjusting medications and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And then the insurance company says, well, yeah, we know they say it, but it's not really mandatory. So we're not going to pay that part. So it's kind of like, okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, but having help, if I had to do this by myself, I would not be on this show right now. I'd be still drinking tequila or, doing something crazy
Right.
because I had two daughters that helped out big time. Family Medical Leave Act. Thank God for that, man, because without it, they wouldn't have been able to take the time off
Mm-hmm.
and afford their life as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my boss sucks, doesn't give me family medical leave. Oh yeah, it's me. Sorry.
I was gonna say you might need to find a new
Yeah.
boss.
So, but the amount that they showed up
Mm-hmm.
and stepped in for was saving grace. I would get those 3 days a week where I could go and do my work
Mm-hmm.
and know that my wife was being cared for by someone that loved her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I also know because we passed by the hospital rooms that there were some people that never had anybody in their room.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was never without one of us in her room from visiting hours till close.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, if we're in a praying mood, pray for those people that don't have
Amen.
that level of care. We're a small family, but we're really tight. And
Yeah.
without them, man, I'm forever grateful, you know.
Yeah. I can't believe like you've told so much in 20 minutes. I can't even believe that. That's a lot, man. Like I'm sitting here trying to process it all. I can't even imagine having lived through it. Because just hearing about it and hearing
Me
the
either.
right, yeah, I bet.
Right? Like,
Like it's got to be like that. Like some mornings, don't you just wake up and are like, "Wow, this is really happening. It happened and it's continuing to happen."
yeah. Thanks, Russ. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is a story, and it's like some of it's surreal because sometimes you're going through it so quickly that you don't have time to really get upset about it or
Mm-hmm.
think about what oh man, this is bothering me or this is, disrupting my life or whatever it is. Yeah, you go there sometimes when you have time, but most of the time it was just like, just stepping up and being there
Yeah.
and making my wife's life as normal as possible when she was ill, because she had oxygen tanks she used to drag around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how you show up. We don't get to choose what happens, but we
Mm-hmm.
get to choose how we respond to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it takes slowing down and just making a choice, like, how am I going to respond to this? And every time that I wanted to go south, and there were like, in a day it might be 30. It's like,
Right. Right.
I want to go
Right.
here, man. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm like resentful sometimes, and all these things. And it just comes back to that circle of like love and understanding of this person that I made this commitment to, that would do the same exact thing for me, man.
Yeah.
And I got to do it for her, which
Yeah.
was what a gift is that? Because there is a gift in, there's a thing, there's an old saying about when somebody asks you for help and you always say no,
Mm-hmm.
you steal that person's joy,
Mm-hmm.
because the joy that we get in helping someone, especially someone that we care about and love, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, man, it's as big of a reward as the gift that they get of being cared for and knowing that they're loved that much, that someone would do that.
Right.
So
Right.
um, when you can spill that over into, maybe not that deeply, but when you can spill it into the way that you serve your clients and your customers,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a matter of time. And it's, segueing into business a little bit. Same thing for you, Chris, as you're growing this, like the way that you show up, like you're no different off camera than you are on camera,
Right.
you know?
Yep. No, I'm exactly the same
And
person, and I can say that with 100% confidence.
yep.
I
And
am.
it's really about just really slowing down enough and allowing whatever it is that's in front of us, man. It's like, how am I going to deal with this? How am I responding to it? And then
Mm-hmm.
making a choice on how to respond. And then there'd be times where I'd be angry or whatever. And it's like, man, this isn't the time, or this isn't the way I want to be either. Let me go back in and serve with love. Because I can
Yeah.
tell you, every time that I did, I found gratitude in what I was doing with and or for my wife. It
Mm-hmm.
made a huge difference in the way that I felt about it. And bottom
Mm-hmm.
line, it's like, there's ways to handle stress, and you don't need any medications or uh,
Right.
things that make you numb in order to deal with it. You just got to stay
Right.
present with it, and then make a choice to
Right.
lean into the good part of it.
Yeah, that'll preach right there. I love that.
Yeah,
You don't find something to numb it. You just lean into it and make the choice.
yeah, you do. Well, it's just like the commitment of love. It's like we celebrated 30 years this past June. And how do you stay, like, we're still cuddly and doing all this stuff and hold hands when we walk and the whole thing, always. And we've
Mm-hmm.
never stopped doing that. And people say, man, how do you still, like, you guys seem like you're really in love still? And it's like, we are. And it's like, how do
Yeah.
you do it? And I don't notice the bad things.
Mm-hmm.
I just see what I like about her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I could find 20 things that she does wrong. She does this. She
Mm-hmm.
does this way, that way. Trust me, if I could find 20, she could find the 50 on my
Right.
side.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm like, man, if she's good with my stuff, I'm totally good with hers, because
Yeah.
she's carrying the burden on this one.
Yeah. For
But
sure, man.
leaning into, like, and so within business, right, leaning into, like, we're going to experience, uphill climbs, some bumps, some bruises, some things, and just lean into the joy of why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make the bad stuff go away. It just takes away our focus from the bad stuff onto,
Mm-hmm.
like, the joy of what we do, and we're able to get through the bad stuff a little bit faster, a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what is it looking like? Like, how is your wife doing now? Like, she's recovering good? Like, what does the next few months hold as far as, you know, getting back to normal or a semblance of normal? I'm sure it won't ever be 100% like it was. Like, is she still going to be on oxygen, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So as of right now, like last week, she's not using oxygen anymore.
Amen.
And so
Praise God.
when Yes, thank you. When the surgery happened and they trim, the lungs collapse a bit, at
Mm-hmm.
least a good portion of them. And he said it's like a paper sack that you scrunch up and you slowly breathe air into it. Eventually they expand, but it takes
Right.
time.
Right.
So that's a process itself. So she was in 28 days in the hospital, 6 weeks after that in a hotel where 3 to 5 days a week we'd be back at the hospital doing processes and things. And each testing that she gets is getting a little bit better each time. And so um, the prognosis, so for her, right, she's all this time at home. Finally, man, like the last 3 weeks of her hotel stay, she's in a little bit of a depression because she's been gone from home. I just want to go home, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know, hey man, we'll get you there, you know, one more day closer. And she's like, after about 10 of those, she's like, I don't want to hear that anymore. Like,
Right.
right? Like, I know I'm closer. You don't have to remind me. It's still 20 days out, you know, whatever it was. And I said, all right, you're allowed that, man.
Yeah.
So we get home and our grandkids, my my daughter's in-laws had the grandkids and they made this big, huge fluorescent sign they put in the yard, welcome home, grandma, brought her to tears, you know, because her
Yeah.
whole reason for doing this is so she can have more time with family. You know, that's her
Mm-hmm.
purpose, man. Um, so we're home for 10 days. And on Saturday night, about 3 weeks ago now, at 3 a.m., she wakes me up and says, you got to take me to the emergency room. I'm nauseous. I can't stop. And I'm in so much pain. I can't take it. And I'm like, oh my God, man. I'm like, so I rush her to the ER and she decided to have a gallbladder attack on top of all this. And 2 days
Oh
later,
my God.
she was in surgery for that. So I'm just
Wow.
like, oh my God, man. Like, but here's the amazing thing. So, you know, 9 hours in the ER, they transported to the transplant hospital. Um, it's Sunday now. On Monday morning, she had surgery, and on Wednesday afternoon, she came home. That's
Wow.
amazing, man. Like
From her gallbladder surgery.
from her gallbladder surgery and still healing
That
from
is amazing.
transplant.
Yeah.
And you know, so what I do now is I break for an hour each day and we go take a walk and we walk 3 to 5,000 steps depending on how she's feeling. So
Just
each
the
day
fact
she's
that she
getting
can
better.
do that now, though,
Oh, I know,
is
man.
amazing.
It is amazing. They did four little incisions about that big. They didn't even use sutures. They just used like liquid skin or something to cover it
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they did it. It's the level of care, man, if you get into a good place is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so her prognosis is every day she takes 2 rounds, one in the morning and one at night, of about 19 different pills. Some of them are immunosuppressants, some are minerals,
Mm.
some are counteracting the effects of this one and that one. But she takes about 19 in the morning and about 12 at night for the rest of her
Mm.
life. And so,
Mm.
because the body is fighting these invaders, right? These foreign lungs, they're not hers. So the body wants to fight them. And their whole job is to adjust the medication on a frequent level to make sure that they're not fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but after 6 months of being home, she should go to every 6 months for 1 year. So 2 more visits. And then after that, it's once a year. She'll go to the hospital for a major checkup. So the
Mm-hmm.
prognosis is good. We're starting to do things like we used to. You know, she's still immunosuppressed, so we're not going in
Right.
buildings and stuff yet, you know, for events. But, you know, we're going out, we're having some dinner outside somewhere or doing that stuff. And slowly but surely, you know, we're getting back to as much of a normal as possible.
I was going to ask you about that with you said you had to clean the house and wipe the walls down and clean the vents and all that. How did that work out, her having to go directly from the hospital to a hotel room
Yeah.
where
Well,
you know
luckily,
that that's all kinds of stuff in there?
oh, big time. So I had bought a year ago a air cleaner, the best one I could find. Had that in the hospital. We went in and we did a big wipe down before she came in.
Okay.
But even still, the air ducts and stuff, you just can't. So, she was going to the hospital 3 to 5 times a week. So if anything was going to happen, they would pick it up really quickly.
Gotcha.
But this hospital also, or this hotel, housed a ton of transplant people. Like 30 to 50% of their rooms were transplant people. So they had a above and beyond cleaning system. Like they would totally strip everything out, change the furniture out, take the mattresses out, go disinfect them, put new disinfected ones in when people came in. It was pretty thorough.
Yeah.
You paid for it, but it was worth it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool. You don't know about these things till you hear about them. You never think a hospital or a hotel would cater specifically to transplant patients. That's pretty cool.
Well, here's a story. So 22 years ago, it's 2022. I went to a seminar and I saw it was on real estate. I was investing at that time. And in between the main speakers was a female that came on, and she was a wealth educator. She taught people about building wealth. And real estate was one of the fingers that she explored. She only worked with women, and her tagline was, "A man's not a plan, ... for wealth," right? Like a man's not a plan for wealth.
Yeah.
And so when she spoke, like her information was the best of the whole weekend. And so at the end of the event, she was there, and I went up to her and I said, "Hey, I know you don't work with men. Would you be willing to talk to my wife? I think that you're the best speaker, etc." And so she said yes. A couple of weeks later, my wife calls. They connect on the phone like, long lost friends. She goes to an event. She ends up going through a year-long program with this lady. And after that year program, the lady said, "I'd like you to move to California and run my company." It was a $2 million company, and Tina came out and ran it for 3 years. And in 3 years, they went from 2 million to 40 million, which was like crazy. It was crazy growth.
Wow.
But it brought Tina here. I was selling my first business, so I stayed back for a year while I wrapped everything up, sold the business, and then I moved out to California a year later. So I'd been coming back and forth about every month, every 6 weeks. So once her job ran out, because I could work from anywhere, I started my coaching business as soon as I did that. And once it ran its course, we said, "Oh, we're going to move back to the Midwest. We're from Ohio." And we said, "Well, let's wait the winter because winter's coming. We'll stay here."
Right.
And so we stayed. And then my oldest daughter graduated from college and said, "Hey, I want to come out to California and see if I can find a job." So we said, "Well, we'll stay a little longer so you can come here." So we stayed another year. And then one thing led to another. We kept staying. And we live 1 hour to an hour and a half, depending on what day of the week it is, from 2 hospitals that do lung transplants there's only 3 in California. And we live and west of the Mississippi River, they're in the top 5, I think, hospitals in the country, west of the Mississippi that do these lung transplants. The hospital that we chose, the surgeon is the same surgeon that teaches all other surgeons from every other hospital in the country how to do trim lung transplants. Nothing's by chance.
Yeah.
Right. If we wouldn't have stayed, we'd have been in the Midwest. Who knows where we would have ended up? We weren't near good, that type of quality hospitals in the Midwest. So everything we're doing leads to something.
Yeah.
And all that we got to do is connect them dots. When I started connecting the dots, I'm like, holy crap, one decision led to this, and we kept staying. There was reasons we kept staying, and they weren't really big reasons, but we know now why. I saw Ciro. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, God had a plan. He had a purpose. He knew what was going to happen.
Because
and even just think about it, just from a financial standpoint in the Midwest, you'd have had to go to a hospital. You'd have had to travel a lot, and so you'd have had those expenses piled on top of.
Just think of all the money I would have saved not living in California.
Well, that's true.
Right?
that's true
Yeah.
too.
No, but in all seriousness,
You might
to live,
could have paid cash for surgery.
right? But to live within in a point where Stanford Medical Hospital and UCSF, the
Yeah.
two leading lung transplant places in the country,
Hmm.
two of the leading transplant, we ended up staying around here, and the whole time we're going, man, this is crazy to live here. It's so expensive. It's crazy. And then my daughter got her job, and then we said, well, we'll stay here. I think it was winter again. I said, let's just stay one more winter. And then she got serious about somebody, and we said, well, she's probably going to get married, man. We want grandkids, and she's the one that's going to have them. And now we have grandkids, and we live 10 minutes away. And the only time that we'll even consider leaving now is when they're too busy to be around us anymore. But for right now, life is good.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Life is good.
Yep, everything does happen for a reason, and whoever said that, LinkedIn user, but the thing was just to notice it. Like if you start tracing back all the stuff that's happened, that's led you, Chris, to here,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
if I wouldn't have made this decision, or this job I got turned down for this job and it led to this. Um, I worked corporate sales and I was good at it. I used to
Hmm.
sell yellow pages. Remember those things?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but when I sold it, it was like a premier sales job. You got paid really well, and you had some prestige, and it was really good. Um, and I had a really fantastic manager who was motivating. He was driven, and I was like top, 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 top. I was in the top half or top five, and I won President's Club a couple times. And then I got transferred from him to a new manager. And this manager was ego centric, ego
Hmm.
driven. He had to be right. I would be on a sales call and he would say, hey, I'm outside the building checking up on you. I want to come in on the sales call. Like, I'm I'm a grown man, dude. You don't come and check up on
Right.
me, like, but he would do stuff like that. And it just kept getting to a head, to a head, to a head. And
Hmm.
eventually I just said, I make 150 to 200K a year and it ain't worth it. And
Yeah.
I left, right? I did my own thing. Had
Hmm.
that manager, had I had my old manager, I might have died in that job.
Right.
With the with the phone books, I would have died broke, man.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
but
Right.
things lead to certain things. Had I had not had that person who rubbed me that way, I wouldn't have made the jump so easily to become a business owner, entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
had I not done that, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get to wake up and I get to do what I love most of the time. I still have to
Hmm.
do the nitty gritty work,
Hmm.
which is something that we talked about, which is what I'm working at, handing those things off and delegating
Hmm.
out. Um, but man, I get to live this for the last 22 years.
Yeah.
I've been living this.
Awesome. I love it. This has been a heck of a story, and we are at time. So next week I have Holly Campolongo on. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, y'all. She's not on LinkedIn to sell anything or do anything, but she is like a connector extraordinaire. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that. But she wanted to come hang out, and I'm more than happy to have her because she's a really good friend of mine. So I'm looking forward to that. Jacob, this has been absolutely amazing. Um, just like I'm speechless on even what to say about it. Like, there's just the strength in both of y'all and the love that y'all obviously have for each other, that you have for her, that you get to do this. Um, you know, and just the ability to admit, um, you know, I can see how it would be easy to walk away, but you
Yeah.
didn't do it because of your commitment to her, and your love for her it's an amazing story, and have absolutely enjoyed every second of this. So thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. I
Thank you. And
appreciate it.
thanks for all the comments and the people that show up, because Chris, you're the real deal. Anytime is always a special gift and an honor for me too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. And we will see y'all next week with Holly. Y'all have a good one.